Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on today's All Things Annexe webinar. Some of you may know me already. My name is Jack Ireland. I work in the marketing team here at iHus Annexe, and I'm delighted today to be joined by none other than Nigel and Oliver, who's one of our Annexe experts. You want to just introduce yourself quickly, Nigel?
My name's Nigel. I've worked for the company for some years now. I'm a sales and development manager. So I deal with the client from the start to the end. It's a really, really great opportunity for me to be involved with people and changing their lives.
Great, thank you, Nigel. We're also joined today by one of our best friends, Ollie at NAPC, who are our specialist planning partners. He'll come through a little bit later on and sort of tell you all about the processes and opportunities that go through when it comes to the obtaining permission to build an annex a little bit later on. But what we'll do to start with is we'll take you through everything to do with the entire annex journey, look at some examples and to help you sort of better picture what annex living will really look like. What we're trying to do today is to sort of make sure it looks suitable for you and then sort of give you some of those key considerations that you can take away or then bring us back and sort of discuss that in further details. So the presentation itself will take around 30 to 40 minutes, and what we'll do is we'll leave plenty of time at the end for any questions you may have. If you do have any questions as you go along, please feel free to bring yourself off of mute. So we would like you to be on mute throughout our talk, but if you do have a burning question that you'd like answering, please feel free to bring yourself up and fire away. I'm sure Nigel or Ollie or myself would be happy to take that question for you. And if not, please just use the chat function or wait until the end and we'll make sure we cover as much as possible. So what we'll do is we'll quickly get started. One of the most common questions that we're asked here is, who is an annex actually for? And traditionally, a lot of people will associate that with elderly relatives, sort of granny annex, but obviously today that's only part of the picture. The reality is that an annex can support many different people at many different stages of their life. So what I'll do is I'll pass you over to Nigel now, who will go into a bit more detail of actually who an annex is for.
Yeah, well, it is a little bit of a myth that annexes are for grandma and granddad to live in the garden or mum and dad to live in the garden. But annexes now, and have been like this for well over 6 or 7 years, is for multi-generational living. And we're in a position where we can supply an annex which can be utilised by younger generations, and younger generations are coming more to the forefront. One of the main reasons for the younger generation is that they're finding it very, very difficult to get on the property ladder. So finding a property for them to utilise as their home, they're either paying exorbitant costs on rental, or they're struggling to find a property that's big enough and as cost friendly to move into. So yeah, it's not just about being for grandma and granddad or mum and dad and so on and so forth. So it's mainly looking, and as you can see on the slide, there's quite a few people that you can see there, the different age groups, and retirees is another one, where people want to retire but they don't want to be too far away from the family. A lot of these annexes are built now where the actual family, younger generation, move into the house, and the occupiers of the house move into the garden, and they scale the size of their dwelling by moving into an annex, but find it much more user friendly to have the family nearby for that multi-generational living, which is very key to what we do as a company. And we're future-proofing. A lot of the things that we do, and I'll touch base with you when we start talking about build and how we do things and so on and so forth in a short while, but it's that struggling property ladder. We've got families who've got children with special needs. We've got older members of the family that have got disabilities that we need to comply with. And we adhere to certain rules and regulations within building regulation and building code. And again, once we start discussing that in more detail, you'll understand why we are the oldest, and we are still the #1 annex provider in the United Kingdom. Have been for 16 years. And there's a reason why we're always at the top, is because we do it differently to other companies. And I will not disrespect other companies, because a lot of the companies do a great job in what they do, but unfortunately, they're not to our sort of level. And it's took a long time and a lot of development to make sure that what we're supplying is very unique. And it's also very unique to you as a client. Okay.
Super. Yeah, obviously, Nigel, you've spoken to hundreds of families over the years. When you first come into contact with someone or speak to them for the first time, what are sort of the usual motivations behind that initial inquiry?
Well, normally, Jack, the motivation for the client is to find out a way of ticking the boxes that they need to tick as a family. And again, finding a property nowadays with an annex in situ, for instance, is much more expensive because it does add a tremendous value to the property itself. And it's the most searched for thing in Rightmove. Did you know that? Yeah, 21% of all searches in Rightmove are for house with annex. But they're not determining what the annex is. It normally shows as a footprint, and it could have been an old workshop that's been converted, but it's not necessarily a bespoke build that we provide. And they normally come across to me and they ask questions about, is it warm? Is it unique? Can I design it myself? And the answer to most of the questions is yes, you can. We have 2 ranges of annexes. And once you've downloaded a brochure or had a brochure posted out to you, you'll find this information quite easy to find as you go through our quality brochure. And that is that we build 2, and one is called a 3632 range, and one is called the classic range. And the usual thing that I get asked is that, what's the difference between the 2? And we're very unique in the marketplace that we build to building regulations and building code on our classic range, and we build our 3632 range the same as all our competitors do, and that's on British Standard 3632. Hence, us giving it the name 3632. So it's all about getting to know what it's going to be like. Is it going to be comfortable? Is mum going to be okay in there? Is dad going to be okay in there? Are my children going to be respectful about the interior? Well, yeah, because you're in a position where you can choose what you.
Super, thank you very much, Nigel. So moving on, why do people choose annex living? What we usually find when we speak to customers is that it falls under one of 3 categories or all of them. So care, lifestyle, and finance. But what does each one of those mean? Nigel, I want to start with care. I know you've probably touched on this a little already, but just to give the guys a bit more detail.
Well, as it says there, what you're looking at on screen, future-proof living. Well, we tend to build our annexes to a thing called DOC-M compliance. That means that we're actually future-proofing the annex from the start. We try and use tasteful, what would be said in Yorkshire, non-dust catchers. Now, that might make you smile because that's my grandma's favourite words. I don't want anything in the house that's a dust catcher because it makes it a little bit more difficult to keep things clean. So when we talk about that, such as the architrave and the skirting that we put through our buildings, are easy wipe clean surfaces without different levels of waves and things like that in it. But it does, by doing to DOC-M, it does relieve a lot of stress on what your aspirations are. We fit a shower room as standard, which is a very low threshold shower tray, but we offer wet rooms, we offer bathrooms for people who still want to have a bath, because as I say, it's multi-generational living. It does mean that when we are talking about care, that because they're closer, they've got their independence, they're still living in their home, but they are literally at throwing distance from the house. Because our annexes are separate from the house. They are ancillary and subservient to the house, which means they're connected by the water, the power, and the drains, but they're not physically attached. So there's a bit of a space between it, which means they can get their quality of life. You can still retain your quality of life, but domiciliary, it's independent living, and it gives them that. It gives the elderly people that little bit more control of their lives. So you share in support. Not only that, grandma and granddad still might be in very, very good health, and they're now going to take charge of picking the kids up from school, taking the kids to school, sharing the transport to go and do the weekly shops, and so on and so forth. So financially, when we get to the financial side of things, this all has an interaction. We all know, if you watched the news night over the last 2 weeks, they've been discussing about care facilities and the cost of having somebody put into a care facility that's not quite able to look after themselves. And they range, some of them are talking £4,000 to £6,000 a week. I have come across one in Brighton that was, I guess you know, it was a £900,000 annual fee, which to me is just staggering, you know. So yeah, these things starting to raise their head. And why would you want pay somebody else to look after mum and dad if you've got the opportunity to be on the doorstep? Then they only need just to open the door and have a say hello, or call in after work, or call before work. So the care side of things, we are very, very strong in making sure that we're supplying them the best build we can with all the facilities that they need. When we take on the next phase of what you've got on slide there, lifestyle, it is an absolutely new chapter. I'm not sure what video Jack's going to play through for us today, but there's one in particular that always sticks in my mind. And it's a lady who lived in the north east of England, and her daughter and her partner had moved to Chester. So quite a distance, you know, a few hundred miles. And she was on her own and unfortunately lost her husband, and she'd been looking at different opportunities of moving around. And she just said, you know, I'd love to live near you, but, you know, what do I do? She'd only got a few handful of friends left. So she went to look at an annex through our OpenHus, loved it, and we decided that we'd work together. We listened to all her needs. She's very, very good at crafting and things like that. So we made specific spaces and rooms inside the annex for her. And she moved, and it's the best thing she's ever done. She's set up quite a few different clubs around her, yeah, to enjoy life. And it's just literally like somebody's flipped the switch and she started the life again. It's amazing. But we customize the spaces with inside these annexes. We have the room sizes to them, and that's mainly on the classic range, because the classic range is fully bespoke. I mentioned the 362 range. That's a fixed set build. So we do go in depth when we talk to people, whether it's over the telephone or whether it's a face-to-face consultation, so people can understand the benefits of each side, whether it's 362, 32, or whether it's a classic. And again, finance. Well, I mentioned that while we're talking about the care side of things. You are going to increase your property's value. You should be well above what you've spent on your annex within the 6-year mark. We say that's the magic number, the 6-year mark. So your price of the cost of your home, the price of houses are constantly gently going up. Some of them have gone stagnant for a little while, but then put an annex in the garden, you'll recruit the cost that you spent on the annex with the value of the house, and you'll start to go over and above that within a 6-year period. So it does have a lot of appeal for people that are wanting to make sure that their investment is well tendered for. Funding opportunities, they're a little different. We do not supply funding for our annexes, but we do have some people on file that we've utilised their knowledge before, haven't we, Jan? You know, but it does massively reduce your cost of living because you're sharing so many different facilities, shopping, taking the kids to and you probably find that you actually end up doing less miles in your car because you're changing that too. You're sharing all that. So that's a little bit of an overview of why people choose annex living. And again, it's a fantastic way of doing things. And for your future thoughts, we do have a lot of videos on our YouTube that you'll find on our website that you'll be able to watch and see the functionality. These are not prompted people. These are genuine people that opened the doors and let us film them and ask them really, really important questions, which are important to you as well as they are to us.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nigel. Like you said there, we do have a lot of content that we create from our customers who have, happily opened up their doors and allowed us to go and speak to them about their journeys and how they're finding it, either initially after just moving in or even a year or two. We went to visit a woman recently who'd had her annex built 12 years ago, and obviously still stood the test of time. The usage has changed. It went from an annex for mum, and now it's an annex for her son. So obviously it just shows that they are adaptable and they can keep changing with the time. So a little bit more on the annex journey with iHus. Obviously, a lot of people think that creating an annex is complicated and it requires too many moving parts, architects, builders, ground workers. But our role here is to essentially make that process as straightforward as possible by bringing it all together in-house. This is why we offer a turnkey service that we're really proud of here. It fills you with more confidence, you get more service from us, and at the end of the day, it's a better value for money. So that's essentially why we offer it. Nigel, just want to take us through this bit of a roadmap here on what the journey is like with iHus.
No, all the ladies and gentlemen that are actually on our webinar today, you'll benefit from this, because what our process is, and again, if you're looking at this nice wavy road down to freedom, that's what we used to call it, the road to freedom. Discovery. So whether you've found us online and you've requested a digital brochure, or you've requested a brochure to be posted out to you, our team in our so-called sales office will put a phone call in, to make sure that you need it, you've got your brochure if it's been posted. If it's a digital brochure downloaded, they'll ring you up after a week, ask you a question, just in case you need further help, because they'll ask you what your intentions are and what you're looking to do. And we have lots of ways. Those people that sit in that office will be able to answer very pertinent questions from you and hopefully give you the answer you need. And if they don't know the answer that you're asking, they'll get in touch with myself, my colleague Andrew, or my colleague Alan. There are 3 of us sales and development managers who, with the greatest respect, if we've probably forgotten more than most people know, so we can normally answer your questions straight away. But again, if we don't know the answer, we won't make it up. We'll always say, right, I'm giving you a call back once I've found that information. Sometimes that information could take 3 or 4 days, but most of the time we can get you an answer straight away. So what will happen to start with? We will then, once you say, actually, I could do with some more information, how can we do that? Well, we offer a consultation. Now, that consultation is very important to understand what that is. The consultation is free of charge. You're under no obligation to end up buying an annex. The whole idea for that consultation is research and development, hence has been called development management. So what we will do is we will sit a 1 to 2 hour Zoom meeting like we're on now, and we'll ask you lots of questions. We will pass over a tremendous amount of information on what we do and how we do it and why we do it. And then that takes us further and further down our journey. So we've sat the virtual consultation with you. We've asked you the questions that are important to you. We've gathered the information that's important to what you get for your garden. And let me explain what's in part of that before we go to design. The gentleman who's going to be joining us to explain our permissions, Oliver and his team will provide us with a preliminary report to look at the viability and validity of having an annex in your garden. We can do online map research looking at the site itself and get some measurements. So we're ready for that initial consultation, and we can gather that information from. Once we've taken that meeting with you, we then pass on all that information to our wonderful design team. We've got 2 amazing designers in our departments. We've got Amy and Alicia, the double A's, so they're not batteries, but by God, they're very good at their job. They will then put what we've put onto paper onto a digital copy of a quotation and drawings. They even, this is gospel, I kid you, they even do CGI work. So you're in a position where you can look through the living room you've just designed, and they'll put furniture in there and they'll put other things in there. So you literally feel like you're walking around somebody's house. It's a fantastic way of doing things. We're then in a position where we say to you, that's exactly what we want, Nigel. Right, what do we do next? What we do after design is we then book you in for a site survey. I would come down to the house, I'll stake the annex dimensions into the ground. You will have the opportunity to see what size it is now. You've still got the opportunity at that point. Actually, that's a little bit too big for us. No, actually, can we make that a little bit bigger? It's not a problem. But I also bring the whole annex in the back of the van. So all our samples of all the materials we use to build the outside, the inside, bathrooms, wet rooms, we've got all those samples with us so you can actually touch and feel the products that we provide you with. And they are very, very high grade. Okay? You then say, we'd like to go forward. And that's the very first time you'll ever pay us. And even that is very unique, because our planning guarantee, our permission guarantee, is that the monies that you pay us at that point to go in for permission is refunded in full if we don't get permission. There isn't another company in the country that will come anywhere near that. We've got our customers' best interests at heart, 1000%. We've then gained, well, okay, well, I will blow a bit of friendly smoke towards my friend Ollie, because I think these slides still show 94%, and I know we're at 96.7% success rate. So you are dealing with true professionals with what we do. Once we've gained the permission, whether it's certificate of lawfulness or whether it's standard household planning, we're now in a position to build. We then, with your assigned project manager, he's the gentleman you're going to be talking to from that point on. I haven't passed you off, so you don't disappear out of my thoughts and my work, but he'll take over and he'll move forward, and you will have a project manager. We've got 10 teams of builders working 50 weeks of the year, and we know our process works perfectly for every single family because we are the quickest and best supplier of this annex for you. We normally say from the day you say yes, we are moving into the annex within 6 to 7 months, as long as everything's in the right place as we move along. And then once we've built it, you enter a 10-year build guarantee, which is insured to the tune of £295,000. And why £2,995?
You tell me.
And that's the most expensive one I've ever built. And we keep moving the insurance policy if we build one that's more expensive. We want to make sure our clients are protected in every single way. And then it says at the end, aftercare. Well, the aftercare packages are available to our clients. We have an app. So if you need something, you can contact us quite quickly via the app. But most people tend to give us a call and say, this is not working just quite right. So we just take that on board and come and sort things out. But when we've finished the build and you've moved in, we always come back after 6 months. And that 6-month call is what we call settling or spec check of our annexes. It might be a cupboard door that needs adjusting because you're not quite happy. It might be a piece of decoration in the corner of the room that you're not quite happy with. We just make sure that we're back to that 100%. Okay.
Super stuff. Great. Thank you, Nigel. Before we do move on, I do want to ask you a really quick question. Obviously, you've just talked through this lovely roadmap that we've got here. Is there a particular stage of this journey where a lot of customers or clients that I've had in the past have been really surprised by, given how much of this process we handle ourselves?
I would say probably 80% of people are completely shocked that we do what we do and how we do it. The whole idea is to make it as completely snag-free, stress-free build that we possibly can. And we've had several awards. I mean, you may have seen us in the Daily Telegraph. We've had a couple of ones in there. But we do have a lot of praise from our customers because they do not realise how much it would have taken out of their quality of life if they were having to deal with certain sections, taking deliveries. Again, when it comes to doing the permissions, if we're seeking, as I say, it's a dual application that we tend to go down. If we're seeking help from the client, Oliver will always ask for a support letter, and we do that to help the process move forward. Oliver and his team have such high levels of competence with what we do. We send lots of things in. But yeah, you might be asked to stick a poster on the lamppost in the street. That's it. And occasionally you might take a delivery of something that's coming on a Saturday morning, but the guys will put it where it needs to be. They don't just leave it for you. Well, yeah, everybody's really, really over the moon. Easy things.
That's exactly what we want to hear. That brings us on nicely. We've sung Ollie's praise enough today. It's now time for you to hear from the man himself, whose life is literally planning. So, Ollie, would you like to take us through a bit more about sort of the permission that it takes to sort of get an annex off the ground?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Jack. So, as Nigel's mentioned, so I'm Ollie and I work for NAPC. Now, we're a team of planning consultants, we're a planning consultancy, but we specialize in annexes, mobile homes and garden rooms. That's all we do. So we don't touch anything else. So we specialize in those three areas. Been doing it sort of 15 plus years now. So yeah, quite well versed and experienced in what's needed. And we handle all of iHus's applications on their behalf. Now, one of the questions we always get asked, which is obviously a natural question, is does my annex need planning permission or some type of permission from the council? Now, the simple answer is yes, it does. So as soon as you introduce forms of sleeping accommodation, washing, cooking facilities, it goes beyond what is incidental, which is something you can do without planning permission, into more of an ancillary use. So planning law dictates that ancillary uses require planning permission. So we do that in sort of two different ways. The primary way is we submit a certificate of lawfulness for the siting of a mobile home, and the second one is a householder planning application for your annex. Now we'll look at the two differences on those two sort of umbrellas in a minute. But as Nigel said, one of the most amazing things that iHus offer is this sort of peace of mind money back guarantee. So we're quite confident in getting permission, but obviously we're not 100% guaranteed because there are occasions when site circumstances, perhaps impact on neighbours, maybe it's a listed building or whatever, flood zone, that kind of thing. It can be a slightly bit more tricky. So if the council decide they don't want to approve it, what iHus have come up with, which is probably unheard of in our industry, if I'm honest, is this money back guarantee. So if we can't obtain planning permission for you, either through the certificate of lawfulness or the householder or an appeal, if any of those two were to fail, then iHus will say that they give you your money back, which is sort of risk-free planning. And as I said, it's sort of unheard of in our industry. So it's a great offer from iHus and something that we'd always recommend, clients or people take up because, you might as well try it to see if you can get your permission for your annex, even if it is a difficult site. Now, if we move on to the next slide, if that's okay, Jack.
Of course.
Great. So as we said, we try and get permission through two different routes. The first one is a certificate of lawfulness. Now, this is for a mobile home. Now, you may say, oh my goodness, a mobile home, and it's going to have wheels, it's going to look ugly. Perhaps you've got some preconceived ideas as to what a mobile home will look like. Well, when you go through the iHus website or their brochure, every one of their annexes have been designed to meet the legal test for a mobile home. Now, I won't go into the ins and outs of what those legal tests are, but it involves construction, size, and mobility. And iHus have been able to prove that they can meet all three of those tests. And that's why we submit a certificate of lawfulness. It's not even necessary. You can site a mobile home without a certificate of lawfulness, but it gives you that bit of paper and assurance from the council that they agree that those three tests are met, and you can go ahead and site that mobile home on your land, and you're going to use it in a way that wouldn't result in a change of use of the land too. So obviously an ancillary use to the main dwelling. Now, a certificate of lawfulness application does work very similarly to your more sort of traditional planning application. So you would agree all the plans with Nigel and his team. Once you've got your design already and that's all been signed off, Nigel sends those drawing packs to us. We then will have a look at it and we'll produce a planning statement setting out why we feel those plans meet the legal definition of a mobile home. It's all backed up by case law, appeal precedents, perhaps local precedents in your council area. And we submit all that to the council. Now, once they get that pack from us, they'll start assessing it, and that takes sort of 8 to 10 weeks. So it should take 8, but we always say 10 because that allows for a bit of validation or bit of capacity issues with the council. Now, unlike a normal planning application, your neighbours don't normally get informed. So the application will go onto the public access system. So if people physically went onto the website, say, I don't know, it was Liverpool City Council, and they typed in your address or the local postcode, they could find it. But normally, a planning application, they would get a letter. But in this scenario, they don't. So it can be quite good if you're not on good terms with your neighbours or you don't want them to find out. They don't get informed. Now, during that process, what will happen is that the council will assess your application and the information we've submitted, the evidence, against the legislation with the Caravan Act, which dictates what a mobile home is. And it would also go to their legal department because it's more of a legal test than it is a policy one. So does it legally meet the definition? So they go through that process. We'll be in contact with them to see how they're getting on. Do they need any information? And sometimes if they're perhaps a bit unsure whether it meets a mobility test, for instance, they should come back to us and ask for a bit more information. If they don't and it gets refused, and we know we can perhaps resubmit with a bit more information, then we will do that. But usually through our negotiations with the council, they'll outlay any concerns that they have, and we can usually help them along with that, which is good. Now, a reason why a certificate of lawfulness can be a really ideal scenario, application to use is because planning constraints like the green belt, maybe it's a listed building, conservation area, flood zone, perhaps there's others, AOMB, perhaps there's an ecological issues on site. Those normal planning policies, which would be assessed with a normal application, they don't come into play with a certificate of lawfulness. All this application is doing is saying, does it meet the lawful definition, yes or no? Does it result in a change of use, yes or no? If it meets the lawful definition, yes. If it doesn't result in a change of use, no, then they should approve the application. So all those other sort of restrictive planning constraints, like if you're on the grounds of a listed building, they don't come into play, and it can be a really great way to achieve your application through that route and not get caught up with those more restrictive policies. Also, it can be slightly quicker. So some councils, because it doesn't go through the 3-week consultation period with the neighbours and other consultees, it can be decided a bit quicker. Now, this is all down to the council and whether or not they have capacity to put it through quicker. But we have had them through sort of 2 and 3 weeks being submitted, so it can be much quicker. But on the norm, I would say allow 8 to 10 weeks for it to be processed. So that's your certificate of lawfulness. Now, what we do is alongside that application, we'll also submit a normal householder application. So you may be familiar with this. It's what you would use to extend your house, convert your loft, that kind of thing. Now, once again, Nigel and his team would do the drawings. They'd send that to us. We would then assess those plans against the council's local planning policies and national planning policies. So policies surrounding design, policies surrounding, if it's a listed building, heritage policies, green belt, impact on neighbours, archaeological, arboricultural, ecology, all those kind of policies which get impacted upon. We'll then assess that against the drawings, and then we'll produce what they call a planning statement outlining why we feel as an APC, why we think the council should approve the application. So we think it satisfies these policies because of X, Y, and Z. Now we produce that document and get all that packaged up together, and then we'll submit that to the council for determination. Now, once they receive that, it takes a couple of weeks for it to be validated. It goes for a validation checklist at the council. That's just to make sure they have all they need to make a legal decision. That could take a week or 2, say. Now, once that's been done, they will then consult with the statutory consultees. So that would be your neighbours. They draw sort of a circle around your house, and every neighbour that gets picked up in that circle gets a letter saying, Mr. Jones has submitted an application at 18 Church Road. You can comment on it, and they can log in and support it or object to it. And also other consultees such as parish council, highways, archaeological, if it gets impacted, people like that, they will get a note and they can pass comment to. Now, once that happens, we will then be monitoring that. So it goes onto their public access system. We can log into that and see if there's been any comments made by neighbours or by consultees, and then we'll respond to those to the case officer. So say one of your neighbours has got concerns of overlooking or overshadowing, for instance, we will then reach out to the officer, see whether they're giving that any weight. If they are, we'll try and formulate a rebuttal and try and overcome that reason for objection, which goes a long way with the case officer. At that point, the case officer will come out to site, make a site visit just to have a look at how it impacts on landscape, neighbours, that kind of thing. And once that's happened, we will then reach out to them again and see if they've got any concerns or there's any questions, because we like to engage with them early on and be proactive with that, because we feel that if we wait to the end, they've usually made up their mind or they're too rushed and they just make a knee-jerk decision. But if we can try and address any issues early on, we feel that really adds a lot of value and it helps getting the approval. Once the decision's issued, say it's approved, it'll always be approved subject to a number of conditions. So it'll be subject to you've got to start within 3 years. You've got to build it in accordance with the drawings you've submitted. And another one that's always included with annexes is that the annex has to remain ancillary and that it can't be separated off. So if you are planning on separating it off in the future and trying to sell it as a new dwelling or a separate dwelling, then you'd have to apply for a separate permission to do that. So it's very common, and it just stops people sort of getting around their sort of new dwelling policies. So the council will control it that way. If it's refused, we will look at the options of obviously resubmitting, trying to make any changes to overcome the reasons for refusal. If it's an in-principle objection, we can have a look at the routes to appeal. If we feel it's got a good chance, we would make that suggestion too. Excuse me. So that's the sort of process. When it comes to the house order permission, what you're in essence doing is you're asking the council to permit where the building is going to go, what it's going to look like, the materials that are going to be used, how it's going to be used. So it's quite a fixed permission, and whereas the mobile home can be a bit more fluid. There's no reason that it has to be moved, and there's no requirement in the legislation to say that. But the council have no control over materials, have no control really of where it needs to go, apart from that it has to go within your curtilage. So if you owned a paddock or a bit of farmland to the side of your house, you couldn't put it in there, for instance. You'd have to apply to include that in your garden, which can be quite difficult sometimes. Not impossible, but difficult. So we always recommend, if you can, try and site it in your garden. If you can't, then we can have a look at the options for you. Now, the reason why we submit both at the same time is a two-pronged approach, I suppose. So firstly, it gives us 2 chances of success. So the most ideal option is the mobile home. That's the one that we sort of promote, because it's just can be a bit quicker. It doesn't get caught up with these planning policies, and you can achieve what you want a little bit easier. But the reason why we submit both is that perhaps the mobile home was to fail, it gives us the chance of getting the annex or vice versa. But also there's a high court decision, so some case law surrounding the principle of a fallback position. Now, a fallback position in law is where you can achieve something via another form of legislation. So say, for instance, the annex is in the grounds of a listed building. There was an example on the previous page. It's in the green belt and it's just not going to be approved because of the restrictions. Then in this scenario that you can see on the screen there, we had this very thing happening. So we had the annex just going to be refused. So we said, well, hold off making the decision on that. Can you have a look at the mobile home? So they had to look at the mobile home application, and the green belt and the listed building policies didn't come into play. So they said, yeah, we're happy, that can be approved and signed off. So that all got signed off and we got the decision through from that, but that left the annex application just sort of hanging there. And we went back to them and said, well, here's this sort of bit of case law surrounding fallback positions. So they went and had a look at it, and we sort of said, well, we can go ahead and achieve the exact same development through this other form of legislation. They said, okay, we'll have a look at it.
That's right.
And they went to their legal team, and they actually attributed quite a bit of weight to that permission. So they were actually allowed then to approve the annex application where normally it would have been refused. So that was a perfect scenario in why we submit the dual application, because it can give us, it's sort of strong arms the council into approving one of them, which is why we got such a high chance of success. And it's just a very good way of doing it. Next slide, please, Jack, if that's all right. Or is that it now?
Oh,
That was it. That was it from.
Cool.
yeah.
So
Ollie,
yeah, no
Ollie,
worries.
I just wanted to point out we've got a question come through, and it's, hi Holly, the primary home has already been extended. Will this affect the planning permissions?
No, not at all. No. So each application is judged on its own merits. Obviously, the council will look at things like overdevelopment of the site. So the mobile home application, absolutely not. That would not be impacted at all with that type of application. The annex application, perhaps. So if it has been extended to an extent where there's only 10% left of your garden and your annex was going to take that 10% up, then obviously they'd look at overdevelopment of the plot. So it would be a consideration. Or if it's in the green belt, where you may just have a percentage of where you can extend. So some councils say you can only extend 30% of your existing dwelling in the green belt, then it may do them. But with the mobile home, absolutely not. No existing policies, no existing applications can ever impact on that. The only thing that would impact on you getting the mobile home through is if you've got a restricted covenant. So some covenants and some deeds will have a covenant on it saying you can't site a mobile home, a caravan, a chatel, a house on wheels, for instance. They use all these different phrases. So I'd always recommend double checking your deeds of your property, especially on new builds. So new builds will have it and the reason they do that is to stop people putting caravans on their driveways and making it look unsightly. So it's just worthwhile double checking that because it gets caught up in that same definition.
Oh, that answers your question there, Carol and Martin.
Super stuff. Thank you very much for that, Ollie. I'm sure if there's any other planning related questions at the end, we'll come straight back over to you. So moving on just a little bit on why I've listened, just give you a little bit of a background. Obviously, we sit here, we're very proud to sit here and say that we've helped hundreds of families create bespoke annexes that suit their needs and continue to strive further and further to help more families unlock the benefits of multi-generational living. We were founded by a chap called Trevor Smeaton, who you can see on screen, stood next to Tony Blackburn, who actually bought one of our annexes at the start.
Tony's our ambassador, and Tony's one of our real true first time customers, and he's been friends with us ever since. He's a tremendous chap.
Yeah, he's always singing praises of multi-generation and obviously annexes as well. He spoke about us a few times on national television as well. But Trevor's aim and sort of vision was to sort of create more multi-generational homes that offer, comfort, connection, but also don't allow that independence which a lot of people want and desire to be lost. And ever since that first project, and obviously from Tony's project as well, we've helped a lot of families want to remain close, and that includes, as you see on the screen, over 500 completed builds in that decade, multiple decades worth of experience. We have over 120 OpenHus community members, which obviously Nigel will touch on shortly, but these are people who have bought an annex and decided that they want to be an advocate for it and open their doors and allow yourself and other potential customers a chance to experience what annex living is really like, rather than a fancy or singing or dancing, very, very fake and plastic show home. As we touched on previously, obviously we're really proud of our turnkey solution, giving you everything you could possibly need into one package. The out of date 94%,
96.7.
96.7. Also, what Nigel has touched on with being able to fully customize your design. Obviously, we've never probably built two annexes that are identical, even if it's down to.
Sean has been here 14 years. He's built one that's identical to the brochure.
There you go. So there's a lot of customization you can do with Nigel and his team to sort of bring it to life and how you really want it to look and feel and how you want it to live in. Like with Ollie, we have other professional partnerships in not just in planning, but in finance and insurance. So all your needs are really met under one roof. Aftercare and support, we're always here. Don't think as soon as you pay that final bill and we give you the keys that we just say, see you later, that's you done. We're here for as long as you want us to be here. We have a terrific maintenance and aftercare team that will look after you. And if you do have any issues at all, we're happy to answer the phone and to fix them as soon as we can. And then obviously Nigel can attest to this as well. There's a no pressure sales philosophy. This is probably going to be one of the most biggest financial decisions you're probably going to have to make as a family, and we're not here to try and shove that down your throats. We're here to inform and guide you and show you how this can work for you and your family.
And Trevor's set out a couple of precedents, and our company motto is we don't have problems, we have solutions. And Trevor says to me, Alan, Sean and Andrew all the time, you don't work for me, you work for the customer, I pay your wages. And I just think, what a fantastic way of putting things across. You know, I work, if you're going to be my client, I work for you, genuinely. I work to get you the best build I can possibly do, the best design you can possibly do, and cover every aspect for you as a client. And that is it. And we want you to become part of our family and become one of the members of our OpenHus.
Exactly that. And that also leads on quite nicely. It's like you knew it was coming. One of the most unique things that we offer is our OpenHus network. So now I just want to tell people a little bit more about what the OpenHus network is.
I think this is one of the keys to what we do and how we do things. There's a couple of companies out there that have showrooms, big buildings, and they've probably put 2 different annexes in there for you to go around and, oh, you can do this, you can do that. Nah. What we need to do is, in that consultation that we organise with you, we need to find out whether you want a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, whatever that build's going to be, and whereabouts you live, And you can rest assured, I think it says over 120. I think we're getting close to more 140. And they're actual people we've built annexes for. And they want to open their doors, and they want you to come and visit, and they want to talk to you about their experience, what they've done, and how they've done it. And let me assure you, if there was an issue within their build that that might have not appeased them as much, they'll tell you about it. And that's what we want. We don't go with you. We only go with you on, I think it's 3 where they're a little bit they're not very well balanced. And Jan, our customer liaison officer, who's a wonderful lady, I have to say that's my sister. Jan is our customer liaison officer. She deals with a lot of the OpenHus things, and she talks to our clients all the time. She's constantly involved with them. But you go to visit the OpenHus on your own. You go, Jan books your appointment, you go and meet the people. They'll tell you about their experience. They'll tell you about service. They'll go through absolutely anything that you want to ask them, but they'll show you around their house. And they will tell you whether they think it's the best thing they've ever done, or it's definitely the best thing they've ever done, because that's the type of conformity we get back. You might see that on the map there's one that's round the corner from you, but they may not be in a position they want to open the doors because of illnesses, and because they're mentally not capable of doing things like that for us anymore. But we stay in touch with everybody, constant. You can pick the phone, talk to me anytime you want. In fact, there'll be I'm not sure if we've passed one of my annexes. I've been talking to a gentleman that I built an annex for 5.5 years ago. And we stay in touch all the time. He lets me know when he's been on holiday. He sends me pictures on my WhatsApp and things like that. But he had the rubber trim on his external door underneath the storm seal. He doesn't know how it happened, but he thinks that the carpet mat that they'd got inside the annex had fallen through the annex. And when he closed the door, he tore the rubber strip at the bottom. I posted him one out. 3 days later, he fitted it himself, because that's the kind of guy he is. But we'd have gone out and done that for him, not a problem. And that's the level of support that our clients want, and that's why they're very, very keen to open the doors and show it. But you normally between 20 and 60 minutes. Some people have travelled further because they want to see a specific style of annex. And some people make it, because we build so many around the coastal areas, some people make it a weekend away and call and see on the way home or on the way down, Jack, aren't they?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Jan is extremely good at getting to know the people, so she knows that she'll suit the people that you're going to visit, or suit your requirements, not with the people themselves, with the building that you're going to view. So, yeah, I would highly, highly recommend that you do the OpenHus, and you'll understand a brochure can show you pictures, but when you're actually inside a room and you realise how much space there is, it's literally, I'll be honest with you, it is a timber framed bungalow in the garden. That's how to think of it. It's a bungalow. You know, it's not anything else but a bungalow. I hope you really take on board. Now on that screen in front of you, there is a call it QR code. QR code. You take a picture of that QR code, it will show you the map and show you where everything is. And hopefully there's one really close by. We can organise that for you when you're ready.
Yeah, exactly that. If you just visit our website, or like Nigel said, scan the QR code on the screen in front of you. It'll take you to our dedicated OpenHus page on our website, and all you've got to do from there is stick in your postcode or a postcode that you want to, or even a town or city, and it will show you a list of all those descending order of how close they are to you. And then a lot of them now have been able to build out and show you some more in-depth pictures and their stories, and sort of you can actually get a bit more of a feel in the first instance.
But you don't just have to do it on the website. You can give us a call.
Exactly that, yeah.
We'll organise it for you just as well.
Yeah.
There's always somebody to answer the phone.
Exactly that, yeah. So, yeah, thank you very much for that, Nigel. I know you're a huge advocate of sending people to see a lived-in real annex. And just really quickly before we move on to the Q&A section, what are some of the most common things that people have gained from this experience? When you sent them there, they wasn't quite sure, you sent them to an annex or an OpenHus, and then you've spoken to them a couple of days later. What's the vibe?
There's quite a few changes of thought about it. Because when people see certain designs, they think, I'm not living in a shed. I've heard that before. And we all have, haven't we? You know, it's not a shed, nowhere near a shed. But wintertime, people will go and visit. And they walk through the door and they're welcomed in. They ask you to want a cup of tea. And they can't believe how warm it is. And believe me, because we are over-engineered on all our compliance, especially Part L legislation, which is insulation and ventilation, because we are so well over-engineered, it's so energy efficient as well, you know. So keeping it nice, cozy, warm. And then in the summer, because we ventilate correctly, we can actually change the air inside the annex 4 times faster than a new house without losing any temperature. So which again means being that over-engineered for the U and the R values for the building. I don't want to bore you with construction, but that's probably one of the most things. And how spacious it is, how it feels. It's genuine. A lovely surprise when people say, "Oh, it was lovely. I really like this. Couldn't believe the size of the bathroom." Or, you know, it's amazing. And we do tend to find that most bedrooms in our annexes are bigger than the bedroom that you're in at the moment.
2 QR codes that you see on the screen. Left-hand side, you can request a digital brochure, or at the same time, there is a tick box on there that allows you to have a copy sent to you. Tick that box and we can get that sent out to you the next day.
But please make sure you tick that box for a hard copy, that you actually do put your full address in.
Exactly that. Yeah. There's been many times where we end up having to either call you back or scramble to try and find where to send this brochure to. And then again, on the right hand side, you've got a QR code that leads you back to OpenHus, which we cannot I appreciate enough of how much of an impact it has moving forward. But yeah, anyway, thank you for your time. Thank you, Nigel.
Oh, absolute pleasure. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for joining the webinar. It does make me feel a little bit better that people do listen to me for a change, because they don't at home.
Exactly that. And yeah, thank you, Ollie, as well, for your insight from a permission and sort of a planning point of view. And again, thank you guys for taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate it. And hopefully we get to speak to you all soon. So yeah, take care and have a great rest of your day.